The reason that immigration, the issues that people really bring up when they talk about immigration and how it's harmful to the country is really ignores that because of the way that we've structured opportunity in our country, it's really not an us versus them, although it is important to understand how communities have positioned differently. What's happened is that because our opportunity structures do not work for everyone, because we don't have good and healthy and upwardly mobile jobs, because our education system is failing many of our students, because many of us are facing foreclosure in our homes, which are all a result of policy investments and disinvestments and policy decisions, some of us are getting exploited and some are getting excluded. And so instead of thinking about it in terms of an us versus them, when we see that conversation happening, this is really how we need to understand it. So what does that mean that we need? We need proactive solutions, not reactionary ones. Why spend millions of dollars building a wall on a very long border when that money could instead be spent on building jobs that really work for people and protecting people in their jobs? And those are policy decisions of where we're spending our money. It's also important to think about multiracial coalition building that really combat these tensions, that understand that communities are often positioned differently in these structures. Some communities are excluded from jobs where others are highly exploited, but that doesn't mean that the attack is on each other. It's really around the larger structure that's preventing a lot of us from having these good opportunities. So how do we make things better? I'll take questions at the end. How do we make things better? What communities of color need are what all communities need, which is it's an intricate web of opportunity structures, whether that be connecting hospitals to transportation, to good homes, to good jobs, to healthy places to buy food, that really work for everyone. And these solutions are not simple, but they are obvious what we all need. And so what this means is understanding how these various systems overlap and interact to really think about solutions that really undergird the problems. So this is a quote by Manny Pastor, who's a professor out of UC Santa Cruz, who talks a lot about regionalism. And what he says is, efforts to address inequality by investing in a region's poor communities have lowered poverty and spurred economic growth throughout the region. So when we deal with the issues that really hit communities of color, who are often first and hardest hit in the face of hurricanes, economic crisis, etc., we really create solutions that work for everyone. And when we really think about how our fates are linked in that way, then we can really start to create a thriving economy that works for everyone and a thriving democracy that works for everyone. So here's a couple of things to put in your toolbox about, so I've shared this structural race analysis with you. What does it mean to use that tool and how to think structurally on race moving forward in your work? Here's a couple of pointers. One, when you look at a problem, look at it in the context of a community's infrastructure. What access do people have to these various systems and infrastructures, whether it be transportation, jobs, healthcare, housing, etc. And do communities have it based on where they're located? So think about it across space. Two, look at where the money is going. Where is their investment and where is their disinvestment in our public infrastructures, both hard infrastructures and soft infrastructures? Three, look at the intersections of institutions and systems to understand that the solution might lie in a different institution than you think. So for example, if your issue is working on job access, and what you think that the solution might be is, well, we just really need to create a job center where people can upload their resumes, get on the internet, inquire about jobs. But what you're finding is that a lot of the people that you're working with are saying, you know, all the jobs I'm finding are halfway across town. I have no way to get there. Well, maybe you need to be talking to folks that are working in transportation to say, what different transportation infrastructures do we need to be creating so that people can actually access these good jobs? And lastly, understand how race is being used in the policy discourse. Is it being used as a wedge? And what are the really underlying structural arrangements, as we say, that really create this conversation that's going this way that really needs to be focused up? So how How do we work structurally on race? One, we need to measure and address the unequal impacts of our policies. One tangible way that we're doing that at Center for Social Inclusion is looking at the economic recovery, saying, okay, these pots of money have been allocated to, for example, build broadband infrastructure across the country. What data are they collecting that help us know whether communities of color are benefiting? And where are the projects being located, and are they being done in a structural way that not only just build broadband infrastructure, but help people get jobs out of the broadband that's being developed? Another is build alliances with unlikely suspects that share interests. Sometimes we need to look to folks in completely different sectors to understand where perhaps we need to be building coalitions for really structural impact. Combat color blindness by taking race on constructively. I hope that I've made a case for why it's necessary to think about race proactively, to not be afraid to touch the issue and to bring it up, because it's being used whether or not we are taking our stake in that conversation or not, and whether or not it's explicit or it's being used in coded language. So if we know how to do it in a way that really shows the impact of how all communities are implicated by the way that we do race poorly, then that's a powerful tool. Create access to credit and wealth for a new political economy. We are, coming out of the shambles here nationally in terms of what our economies look like. And this is an opportunity to really decide, how are we putting these public policy investments that really create new political economies? If we're doing retrofitting and we're creating green jobs, who's benefiting from these jobs? And how do we make sure that all communities benefit from them so that there are long-lasting impacts across race in these new economies that are getting created? And lastly, build the capacity of community-led vision and policies. In all of the work that we do, and I'm sure all the work that you all do in communities, the people are as important as the issues, and oftentimes many of the best solutions come from the very people that are affected. So as much as and as important are the ideas, the people that we work with and how we work with them is very, very essential. So I just wanted to leave you all with all the depressing facts that I shared with you all. Some hopeful nuggets of why this is really a moment of opportunity. So as devastating as this economic crisis has been, it really helps to paint the picture for how all of our fates are linked, both from how we created an unstable economy that ended up hurting us all, but also how we can see how if we really don't build the communities that have the weakest infrastructure up, then all of us will end up not coming out of the rubble. The second thing is a little bit more of a policy strategic angle, which is that our demographics are changing. Like I said, 36% of Texas is now Latino, and a fourth of them are eligible voters. By 2050, people of color will constitute the new majority nationally, and probably much sooner, actually, nationally and in Texas. So we need to understand the new context that we're starting to develop in, and understand it as a political opportunity to really move some very progressive things. And lastly, we do have a new administration, although it's about a year old now in Washington. And as stumbling as the start has been, given all the challenges that the administration has faced, there is more of an opportunity because of the conversations around sustainability and public investment that are happening to really do some very innovative things.